Released in 1993, Power Strike 2 was developed by Compile and manages to present us with one of the finest shooters on the system. Taking many cues from the previous game in the series, Power Strike 2 is essentially more of the same, relying on the same engine and mechanics, although it has some improvements here and there, and more notably a generally better art direction. Taking place across 6 stages, it is your job to pilot your ship through the fast-moving corridors that are filled with enemies. Players collect power-ups dropped by defeated enemies that in turn charges up the player's weapon to ultimately unleash a devastating attack. Compared to the original, a generous amount of customization is also present in the game, allowing you to this time have the ability to choose your sub-weapon at the start. This opens up various ways to play the game due to the varying attributes and unique qualities of the weapons available. If you're a fan of shooters, make sure you check this one out for yourself. Gunstar Heroes is a fast-paced side-scrolling shooter developed by M2 for the Game Gear. Hugely popular on Sega's home console at the time, the fact that they managed to shrink this game down for the handheld is nothing short of amazing, albeit with a few compromises such as scaled-back visuals and the absence of the multiplayer mode, but none of this manages to deter from what is effectively a highly rewarding experience. You control either a red or blue Gunstar. The player has access to 4 basic weapons as well: Force, which acts as a rapid shot, Lightning, a straight shot that penetrates enemies, Chaser, a homing weapon, and finally Flame, a powerful close range weapon. The player can combine 2 weapons to produce a new one for a total of 14 weapons, which adds an incredible amount of customization to the game considering its handheld nature. As well as taking advantage of these various weapons, it is also possible to use melee attacks and moves such as grabbing and tossing enemies, jumping and sliding to ultimately achieve your goal. Gunstar Heroes is an incredible port that is definitely worth a look. Originally released for the Mega Drive, this port of Streets of Rage 2 is nothing short of amazing. Having the ability to play this game on the go was a real plus back in the day, and with some new content present in the game as well, it was a bit of a no-brainer for fans of the series. There are 4 characters to choose from, each with their own unique special moves, as well as the huge amount of levels from the home release to make your way through. But due to the nature of the handheld release, a lot of the controls have to be reworked, resulting in a control scheme that at first can be jarring, but after some time of the game you'll be pulling off moves with ease. Visually, the game takes a bit of a hit, but thankfully this does not detract from the experience, and still manages to convey the fun of the home release effectively. If you've recently acquired a fancy Game Gear, this is one game to add to your list. Released in 1994 and developed by SNK, Fatal Fury Special is a stripped-down version of the Neo Geo original. Back in the day of the Game Boy and Game Gear, fighting games on these systems often suffered from the limitations of the hardware, resulting in slow gameplay and ultimately not a very enjoyable experience. This is where Fatal Fury Special excels, not only resembling the visual and audio cues from its Neo Geo original, but also its gameplay that was not much altered in the slimming down process. Featuring an array of characters that all possess unique movesets, there is plenty on offer for fighting fans. As you would expect, due to the 2-button setup of the system, it does not allow for the full amount of options available elsewhere, but the most important moves are present and allow for varying tactics when approaching each match. At the time, there truly was no other handheld fighter that got everything so right. Going back to this game today, it's easy to see why, so if you're in the market for a fighter on the system, I would recommend picking this one up. Developed by Sega and released for the Game Gear in 1992, Shinobi is a side-scrolling action game that sees you filling the shoes of Joe Musashi, a red ninja whose mission is to acquire 5 elemental crystals that were stolen and spread across different areas by the evil Black Ninja. Let's face it, the story isn't going to win any rewards, but with a game like Shinobi, that's not really the entire focus. Gameplay is where it's at, and Shinobi truly excels and manages to bring the full console experience to the handheld with all the incredible level design, fast action and mechanics intact. Throughout the duration of the adventure, you will encounter various allies of Joe that have appeared in the previous games in the series. What makes this so cool is that it gives you the ability to switch out your character to take advantage of the varied unique abilities of those you do encounter. This ties into acquiring the elemental crystals, as some require a specific ability in order to reach. In turn, this encourages several playthroughs of each level in order to find everything, adding an extra layer of replay value in the process. If you're a fan of the Shinobi games, this one is a bit of a no-brainer, and to be honest, one of the better games on the system. Woody Pop is a ball and paddle game that shares many similarities with the likes of Breakout and Arkanoid. Originally exclusive to the Japanese market and Sega's home console, the Master System, it wasn't until 1991 that the game was brought to the West in the form of this handheld adventure. You take control of a tree spirit named Woody, your job being to break down the block barriers set up by an enemy known as the Mad Machine. Now the blocks consist of various different types that can reward the player with abilities such as the Flame Ball, but also blocks that can release enemies onto the screen such as wind-up robots that will aim to obstruct and deflect the ball in various ways. With up to 50 areas available in the game, as well as the ability to choose which level you encounter next, there are many ways to make your way through it, which really helps with the game's replay value. Ball and paddle games have been around for years, but Woody Pop is definitely one to remember. If you're at least a passing fan of the genre, I'd say there is enough on offer here to warrant a purchase. Originally released for the Master System in 1992, Land of Illusion follows the escapades of Mickey Mouse in this incredibly fun platformer for the system. Consisting of 14 stages set across a variety of locations, it is your job to collect the crystals scattered throughout the levels in order to bring back happiness to the villagers that inhabit the world. As you would expect from a platformer, the gameplay is pretty standard. You run, jump and attack enemies, and also have the ability to acquire new powers, such as potions and ropes that all have their own distinct advantages. A huge cast of characters make an appearance in the game, such as Goofy and Donald Duck. Disney platformers have always had a very endearing quality, and this Game Gear release is no exception. If platformers are your thing, this is the one to get. I'm a huge fan of the Panzer Dragoon series, and to see it make an appearance on the Game Gear was a welcome surprise. This version of the game shares more similarities with the likes of Space Harrier than its big brother on the Sega Saturn, but still presents one of the better games for the system. The action takes place from a third-person perspective, with some of the more prominent elements of the series, such as the lock-on ability, adding an extra layer of depth to the gameplay we all know and love from Space Harrier. Despite the move from console to handheld, Panzer Dragoon Mini retains enough from the series to offer a fun experience. The visuals and music all feel authentic and help create a simple pick-up-and-play style that will keep you coming back time and time again. Sonic Chaos is a 2D platforming game that shares many similarities with Sonic the Hedgehog 2, albeit with new movesets, power-ups and mechanics that all manage to mix up the formula enough to make this handheld outing stand out. You get two characters to play as, the first being Sonic and the second Tails. There's a few differences between the two, such as movement speed as well as specific abilities unique to each character, like the Strike Dash that makes a return from Sonic CD. As you would expect, the usual power-ups are all present, such as the Speed Shoes, Super Rings and Invincibles, as well as character-specific power-ups such as Sonic's Rocket Shoes, which grant him the power of flight for a short period of time. With a total of 6 zones, each split up into 3 acts, there is plenty to sink your teeth into. All in all, this is a fantastic release for the Game Gear, and one that definitely deserves a place in your library. In my opinion, Shining Force has to be one of the most underrated series I've ever encountered. Its games have spanned many of Sega's consoles and have gone on to become some of my favourites in the genre. As the player, you progress through a series of turn-based tactical battles intersected by several short cutscenes that convey the story. The variety of characters and specialities, as well as the strategy involved in several of the battles, make this a challenging and engaging experience. Each battle takes advantage of a grid system that sees each character and enemy taking turns in moving, casting magic, attacking and using items. Like the other games in the Shining Force series, it offers a wide variety of enemies and bosses and uses terrain conditions to determine the efficiency of attacks and spells. This game has everything you could want from an RPG: action, intrigue and hours of entertainment.